Kuf Lamed Amud Aleph Perak Rabbi Eliezer Demila, right at the top of the Amud. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Im Lo Yehi Kli Merev Shabbos. If a person didn't bring the knife to be used for the meal, if he did not bring it to the home on Erev Shabbos, so now he has to perform the mitzvah milah. Mitzvah milah is doich Shabbos, Shmini Yimol Afilu B'Shabbos, but he doesn't have the knife. Meviyeh b'Shabbos Megul. He brings it on Shabbos, even though it involves carrying. He holds, Rabbi Eliezer holds that just like the mitzvah milah is doich Shabbos, the machshirei mitzvah, the knife, bringing knife, is also doich Shabbos, and you bring it megula. You bring it uncovered so people will see it. The more we'll discuss the reason for that. Ubisakana, what's a sakana? When they were geyser on the mitzvah and they weren't allowed to do it, so they had to do it secretly. Ubisakana mechaseh al pi edim. Then he covers it. He has to cover, but he does it in front of witnesses, in front of edim, so that edim could see it and they know that he's bringing this knife is being brought on Shabbos. V'oidam Rabbi Eliezer says additionally, korsim eitzim las b'chom las barzel or kli barzel. He says that additionally, that if you don't even have a knife to do the milah, if you don't have one, you can cut down wood and to make coals and to make an instrument to use for the milah. You can do that as well. Rabbi Eliezer holds, like we mentioned, that the mitzvah milah is doich Shabbos and the machshirin are doich Shabbos. So if you don't have the knife, you can carry the knife. If you don't have a knife at all, you can even make the knife. But that's what Rabbi Eliezer says. But Rabbi Akiva says, Klal Amar Rabbi Akiva, no. Kol Melacha Asher Shel Asayis Erev Shabbos Eino Doichas Shabbos. If this could have been done before Shabbos, it's not Doichas Shabbos. The mitzvah of milah, if it's the 8th day of milah, if the 8th day falls out on Shabbos, you couldn't do it before Shabbos. Doichas Shabbos. The machshirin, you could have brought the knife before Shabbos. You could have made the knife before Shabbos. It's not Doichas Shabbos. Sheyeh Shel Asayis Erev Shabbos Doichas Shabbos. If it could not have been done beforehand, then it's Doichas Shabbos. Now Rabbi Eliezer says that the mitzvah milah is doich Shabbos and the machshirim are doich Shabbos. Taisus asks the question, why bring the knife to the child and thereby being over the malach of carrying the knife? Why not bring the child to the knife? We have a principle, we say, achai noises atzmai. There's no isser deraisa in carrying a person, a living person. There's no isser deraisa. So why bring the knife, carry the knife, which involves a malacha deraisa? Why not rather bring the baby to the knife? Taisus answers two terutzim, and one teretz he answers is that because presumably the mother is too weak to come, and then afterwards, after the milah, you'll have to bring the child back to the mother. Now, even though we say chai noises asma, but if a person is sick, if a person is weak, then he can't help in the caring, he can't assist in the caring, so then carrying the person is like carrying an inanimate object. And there would be an rise of carrying. So therefore he holds that nothing will be gained over here, because in any event you'll have to bring the child back to the mother, and at that state, after the milah, the child is a chayla, and we wouldn't say chai noises atzma. Therefore, there's nothing to be gained. Other Rishonim learn that the Tinuk was only 8 days old, then we won't say you don't apply, even before the milah, we don't apply the principle of chai noises atzma, because he's too young. He's too young and doesn't have the strength, and we consider over there him to be just like a chayla. You don't say chai noises atzma. In that state, we wouldn't say it either. The Ramban and the Rashba have that, say that as far. But Taisus gives another teretz, which is a big chiddush, and he says, even though it might be true, even though it's true that even after the milah, that we would say a chai noises asma, even if we would say that, nevertheless, we would still bring the knife to the tinuk to do the milah, even though it involves an isser deraisa, rather than the tinuk to the knife because Kedei Lamaher, to hasten the mitzvah, to do it more quickly. It's easier to bring the knife, and you can run bringing the knife to the child. To Lamaher, to hasten the mitzvah, we would also say to do it in that way, to make it quicker, and we would bring it, even though it involves carrying at the Reis of the Geifen, the mitzvah milah is Deicha Shabbos, and Rabbi Eliezer holds the Machshir are also Deicha Shabbos. We would even be mattered in that way to be mamaher, to show the chavivas of the mitzvah and be mamaher doing the mitzvah. See Gemara, Yiboilahu. So Rabbi Eliezer says that we bring the knife, and we bring it megula. It's uncovered, it's exposed, so people should see the knife. Time of the Rabbi Eliezer mishum chibuvei mitzvah. Is it because we want to show how precious the mitzvah is, how we're mechav it, how we love the mitzvah, and therefore we show that we're bringing this knife even on Shabbos, like Dilan mishum chashad? Or maybe the reason is that we do it so that people shouldn't be choshed that they're really carrying, that they're carrying something else. That people should see what's being carried as a knife. It's a knife for the milah. So they shouldn't be choshed the person who is carrying for personal use on Shabbos. Where's the nafkamina? Lasui mechus al pi. Can you cover it with Adam witnessing it? So if Adam are witnessing it, you don't have chashad, but it's been covered and you don't have chibuvei mitzvah. So this would be a nafkamina if we say that chibuv mitzvah is a factor in this as well. If you say it's chibuvei mitzvah, it has to be exposed. It cannot be covered even if there's Adam. But if you say it's mishul chashada, then since there's Adam over here in this case, then it would be appropriate, it would be proper. What's the halacha? He said the reason is chibuvei mitzvah, and that's why it's megula. So therefore, even if there's Adam, it's not, it won't help. You still have to uncover it. From the fact that he says it's megula has to be and not mechusa, it wants to be marbet that it should not be done mechusa. Meaning, even if there's Adam, it's not enough. It's not sufficient. It should be megula to show chaviyah chibuvei mitzvah. Can bring a rayim, it's medui from the Mishnah, because the Mishnah says, it says you can cover it with Adam, in the presence of Adam, at time of sakana. Meaning, davka at the time of sakana, but sakana em, shalem sakana loy. Shema mino, mishum chibuvei mitzvah, shema mino. So you see clearly that the reason is chibuvei mitzvah. Tanyida mevi'im megula ve'ein mevi'im mechusa. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer says it should be exposed and not covered. Rabbi Yehuda mishum Rabbi Eliezer and hagim hayu b'shas sakona shayim mevi'im mechusa al pi Adam. Rabbi Yehuda says that the minhag was at the time of sakona that they covered it al pi Adam. Iboilahu Adam teko amar. He says Adam iu v'chad oidima hu v'trei. When it says Adam, does it mean him and two other witnesses? Or Adam, he can join in, he can be considered and be counted as one of the Adam, meaning you only need one other person. So it says, he covers it al pi Adam. So he says over here, not like before, in the Bryce before, it says, Shay mechusa al pi Adam, that it was covered in front of Adam. There we have more of a doubt, more of a question. Perhaps he's one of the Adam. But here it says he covers it in the presence of Adam. So doesn't that show you clearly that there has to be two others? Aside from him, we need two Adam. So if you say it's two others, that's fine. We understand it. My Adam. What does that mean? He covers it in the presence of Adam. Means perhaps what it means is not that you need two others, but he's mechaseo al pi Adam, he's one of them. But they have to be Adam that in another case that they could testify. Meaning that this pair, him and somebody else, could testify in a case where you need genuine Adam. Now here you don't need real Adus. Here it's just to avoid the suspicion. Bechashad. What it means to say is perhaps that Mechaseu al pi Edom, he covers it. The one other person that he has over here, aside from himself, is somebody that the two of them can be Edom somewhere else, meaning that they're not relatives, because if they were Krivim, they couldn't be made in this case, they couldn't be made in another case. So in this case, he perhaps means one other aid, that the two of them could be made where you need a genuine Edom, where it is real Edom that is needed, that they could be made b'makam acher, meaning that they're not Krivim. So perhaps that's what it means. In the place of Rabbi Eliezer, Machshir Mitzvah, the Mila, so they would cut down trees to make coals, to make the metal instrument to use for the Mila. In his region, they didn't hold that it was also to have milk with meat if the meat is basar oif. If it's from basar oif, basar b'cholav, we know what the Torah says, but they held that basar oif b'cholav is mutter, and they held in midrabanan is mutter. So that's what they did in their region. Levi equal to Yosef Rishba. He went to the house of Yosef, the trapper, the person who used to hunt birds. Krivale Resha, the Tavis B'chalva, they gave him to eat the head of a peacock in milk. Lo yochel, but he didn't eat it. He also lekami the Rebbe came for him. Amar lei, my leitish medina. Why don't you put him in a cher? He's eating basar b'challah, basar oif b'challah. Amar lei, asad Rabbi ben Masechet. He said because the Mord Asra, the one who was the Paisik in that region, was Rabbi Yomi Masechet. And I thought perhaps he holds any dash on the Rabbi Yosef Galili, then it's mutter. This non Rabbi Yosef Galili, Ayman, never Elisech look on the The pasuk says it's also to nevela, but never Elisech vashal gdi b'chalei v'imay. And it says it's also to cook meat with the gdi, a kid with its mother's milk. So we dash in the smichos that shall also mishum nevela, that which is also mishum nevela, meaning a behema, is also levashal b'cholav. There's an isser of bishul b'cholav, cooking in milk. Oiv shall also mishum nevela yachol ye also levashal b'cholav. So you might think that it applies to a bird as well. Tamalayma b'chalev imay is with its mother's milk. Yasoiv she'en lecholav ein, which excludes a bird which doesn't have milk from the mother. Meaning the isser to be to cook meat with milk, it doesn't have to be specifically mother's milk. So why does the Torah say b'chalev imay? To tell you that this isser is referring only to the species, only to the min that has mother's milk. So therefore, it includes behemoths, but it doesn't include oifos, because oifos do not have mother's milk. That's how he darshaned, and therefore he held it's mutter, therefore he did not put him in cher. There was a city, Shayoisim, Rabbi Eliezer, that they followed in minig like Rabbi Eliezer, and they held that Machshirei Mila were Doicha Shabbos. Vayamesim Bizmanam, and people didn't die prematurely, nobody died prematurely. And one time the Malchus of Shem were geyser on Mila, and they were not geyser on that city. So they followed Rabbi Eliezer, and they followed faithfully Rabbi Eliezer. And this was before the Psak Halacha came out, not like Rabbi Eliezer, and they were rewarded for that. Tanya Rabbi Shem ben Gamliel call mitzvah shekibul aleim besimcha, any mitzvah that Kal Yisrael mekabel besimcha can gain mila, like the mitzvah mila d'chsiv sos anaycha alim rasecha gemaitzi sholarav. I rejoice over your words, like someone who has he captures in the war, he captures booty, he captures spoils, a huge amount of nechasim, of spoils from a war. So they still keep that b'simcha. As the Dovid Melech was said, he would rejoice over the mitzvah milah, that the mitzvah milah is a constant mitzvah, even in places and circumstances where he can't perform other mitzvahs, or he can't put on tefillin, etc., but he has a mitzvah milah. But any mitzvahs that Klal Yisrael took upon themselves, and there was arguing and quarreling, and they did it without simcha, kigun arayas, like it says by arayas, when they were informed about the isur of having relations with family members, it says Vayishma Moshe and Sa'am Beichel Mishbechoisa. He heard them and they were crying by their families. What does it mean? Al Iske Mishbechoisa. It means by their families about the Iske Mishbechoisa, that they were informed that they were also to have relations with family members, and they were crying. So So in the acceptance of it, they did not accept it happily. They did not accept it with simcha, and it's all continued to be done with ketata. Because there's a ksuva, you don't have a ksuva where they talk about the financial arrangements between the chassan and kala that doesn't have quarreling associated with it. Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Aimer, he says, "Kol mitzvah shemas Yisrael atzma leim lemisa b'shas gzeres hamalchus." Mitzvahs to Klal Yisrael meiser nefesh when there's a gzeres hamalchus, Rachmana son, not to keep mitzvahs, and they were meiser nefesh kigoyin aves chamu mila adayin himuchsechs biyadam. It's still strong in their hands. But the whole mitzvah shemas Yisrael atzma leim lemisa b'shas gzeres malchus kigoyin tefillin adayin himurupa biyadam. But other mitzvahs that they weren't meiser nefesh at the time of Xeris Malchus, like tefillin, it's weak in their hands. They don't keep it in a strong way. People, even unaffiliated, a large portion do keep the mitzvah of milah, but most of them do not keep the mitzvah of tefillin. So we'll see from the following Maisa that Klal Yisrael were not meiser nefesh from milah. And we'll see from the following Maisa of Elisha Bal Kanafayim. And he said halacha that Elisha Bal Kanafayim was someone who was zohar in the mitzvah of tefillin. And one has to be zohar in mitzvah of tefillin like him. And he was a person that had a gufnaki, that presumably he had a gufnaki since he was so zohar in mitzvah of tefillin. The person wearing tefillin has to ensure himself shalei yafiach behem, that he doesn't sleep in them, as we'll see. He has to be able to have a gufnaki, not to fall asleep. If he falls asleep, he might be he might be Masechet. So he has to be able to be in control of his body. Why was he given that name? One time, the Malchus Shoy, the Romans were going to Gzer al Yisrael, Shekol Aminech Tefillin al Reisha, and he wanted to put some tefillin, Yikru es Meicha, it'll gouge out his brain. By Elisha Minech Tefillin v'yatz l'shuk, and Elisha will put on tefillin, he went into the market, V'rol Kazer Echad, Roman officials saw him, Ratz Milfanav, Ratz Ma'achrav, Elisha ran away from him, and he was chasing him, came and Shegi Esle, when the official caught up to him, Not Lameroish V'achzam B'yarab. So Elisha took off the tefillin from his head and put it in his hand. So he said, the official said to him, "What's in your hand?" He said, "It's the wings of a dove, the wings of a yaina." There's an ace. He opened his hands, and there's an ace, the tefillin, had the appearance of kanfiyana, of the dove, the wings of dove. That's why he was called Bal Kanafayim, because it had this nace of that the tefillin took the appearance of the wings of Yaina. And therefore he was saved. He had this nace. He was saved from the Roman official because it didn't look like tefillin. Why did Elisha say specifically that they were kanfi yoina, the wings of a dove, and why didn't he say in others? Why specifically a yoina? Mishum dedami k'neis Yisrael yoina, because Klal Yisrael is compared to a yoina. Shenemar kanfi yoina nechva v'kesev, the wings of a yoina covered with silver, with gold. Ma Yoina ze Kanfei Megina Saleh. So the Novi compares, says, you, Klal Yisrael, are compared to the Kanfei Yoina. What's the comparison? Ma Yoina ze Kanfei Megina Saleh. Just like the Yoina. The wings are protected as opposed to other birds where it's the beak or the claws. By the Yoina, it's specifically the wings protected. Af Yisrael, mitzvahs Megina Saleh. Klal Yisrael also, the mitzvah is protected. So tefillin is a mitzvah. And for its protection, like the Kanfei Yoina protects, so he said the Kanfei Yoina. Now there's nothing over here, we don't see anything at all that the Klal Yisrael were not Meiser Nefesh for tefillin, and we don't see that Elisha had a guf naki. So how do we learn out both of these from this Meiser? So the fact that Yoina had a guf, that Elisha rather had a guf naki, Taisa says, because since he had this great nace that happened to him, it's not to say he kept the mitzvah b'shleimus. Must be that he had a guf naki. The Marsha says additionally that he was called that Elisha Bal Knafayim, the one with wings. He didn't have wings, but it must be that he was like a malach, and a malach has a guf naki. Where do we see from here that Klal Yisrael was not Meiser Nefesh? So Taisa says because even Elisha, he didn't say that they were tefillin. Even Elisha, he said that they're Kanfei Yoina. So you see that they weren't mamish Meiser Nefesh for tefillin, because even Elisha, the great Elisha, didn't say they were tefillin. Other Rishonim learn from these for different shot is from the fact that Dafka Elisha was singled out, that he was Meiser Nefesh. It shows he was Meiser Nefesh, but generally speaking, Klal Yisrael was not Meiser Nefesh.